What happened with Khaled was, and this could be breaking news to the world.
This is Fat Joe discussing the state of DJ Khaled's life before his November 2015 Snapchat boom. Now, before we get started, this commentary is mainly about our motivations and a literal look at the symbols we sometimes use to represent those motivations. We've all seen what DJ Khaled's done, but I'd like to talk about why he did what he did. What drives him? I'm D-Respect, and I'd like to talk about DJ Khaled's motivation. Now let's get back to Fat Joe.
What happened with Khaled was at a very low point in his life. He had an album come out that didn't do too well. That's right. He had some very close friends that started to turn their back on him.
That disappointing album that he was referring to was I've Changed a Lot, released in October 23rd, 2015. But how bad were those first week numbers, you ask? I've Changed a Lot sold a measly 10,000 copies in its first week. When you compare that to his other releases like We the Best Forever that did 53,000 and We Global that made 60,000 in its first 7 days, it's pretty disappointing. Just to further qualify his disappointment, its first week sales were outdone by artists who had dropped earlier that year, like Joe Budden's All Love Lost and Hobson's Pound Syndrome. Those are albums made for backpackers, and they still outdid Khaled. But how could this be when all he does is win? Khaled shares that typical materialistic gene that we've all come to know within the hip-hop culture. Watches, rings, foreign cars all over his Snapchat stories. To the untrained eye, it may seem that this is what drives him. After all, when you listen to a Khaled record, it almost always seems to be the topic of conversation. But a bigger source of his motivation is centered behind the infamous they.
They do not want you to have a lunch. They don't want you to be happy. They don't want you to enjoy lunch. Well, I'm going to enjoy it. Here's chicken tamales. Here's some fish. You see it, egg whites, hash browns, chicken sausage, water. You know they don't want you to eat breakfast. So what we're going to do is we're going to eat breakfast.
Motivation is something that I think about a lot. To me, it's not what you do, but why you do it. For example, if somebody tells me they rap, there's a big difference between the guy who wants to rap just because he wants to be famous and the other who wants to express an idea through music or simply inspire others. The why is everything. Do you ever consider your why you do what you do? Motivational speaker Eric Thomas has a pretty accurate analogy on the subject. Here's the gist of it. Every morning, a gazelle and a lion both wake up. The lion's job is to outrun the slowest gazelle. The gazelle's job is to run and stay away from danger. Both are running, both are motivated. One is simply running towards something, and the other is running away from something. What E.T. means by this is, the lion doesn't need a reason to run. He's hungry. It comes from within. He has to eat and feed his pride. The gazelle wouldn't be running if there were no lions. In other words, the lion is internally motivated and the gazelle is externally motivated.
And he found himself in his home on the talking to the lion and talking on the kayak and the Rafe talk and then he was just discovered this snap thing.
Khaled's snap stories mostly consist of him watering his flowers, and at the center of his garden is a statue of a lion. And on his major key album, he sits calmly at his throne right next to a lion.
Lion!
I once thought that the way he says that word suggests some allegiance to Rastafarians since they have the Lion of Judah gracing their flag, but other than that accent and a love for reggae music on his snap stories, there's really no evidence to that. Here are some facts about lions that you should know. They sleep 20 hours a day, and during mating season, they can potentially fuck 50 times a day. And by the way, each of these sessions average at about 10 seconds each time. I just think that's funny to mention. Fun fact about gazelles are they sleep 3 hours a day. Now, why would they do such a thing? They don't have as much sex, do they? They're herbivores, so they don't hunt and compete with other gazelles, but they do have to stay awake to avoid predators, to elude negativity.
Now, you say they a lot. Who is they? What do you mean? Who are they?
To stay away.
Please, Ellen, stay away from them.
From they.
Stay away from them.
I want to know who they're to stay away from. Who are they?
is the person that told you would never have an Ellen show. You know what I'm saying? They are the people that don't believe in you. You know, that say that you won't succeed. You know what I'm saying? So we stay away from they.
DJ Khaled is not a lion. He's a gazelle. And why wouldn't he be? His whole career must have been a constant uphill battle. He's of Palestinian descent, born in New Orleans, but he attempted to ingrain himself within the Miami lifestyle as a DJ at WEDR 99 Jams in the late 1990s. And not to mention having to become a headlining act when you're just a DJ, not a rapper, but a loud, self-aggrandizing DJ. They are the source of his motivation, which doesn't mean he only eats breakfast because they don't want him to have it. They oppose him on his big moves and his big deals. They don't want him on the Ellen Show, so that's why he's there. Try not to look at the Gazelle as a loss or in a negative light. Instead, you should view it as the underdog, the survivor.
You know, that was one of my apartments before I got evicted, because, you know, when I came to Miami, in them days, I would get evicted like every month. Had to get a new place.
Why? Because you were a party animal? You wouldn't pay your rent?
I couldn't afford it at that time. You know what I'm saying? And only furniture I had was records and my turntables. So, like, I just, I was hustling. I used to make $100 a week, but I ain't never complained ever in my life.
A lion within rap music would be someone who's good. And boy, does he know he's good. Who's widely respected by his peers and hip-hop heads. Has a traditional style which we all know and love. He's lyrical, the complete package. But when it comes to his work, there's nothing to speak of. No track record of consistency, just sheer talent, but I digress. It's interesting how we as human beings relate to an animal who's good at what they do, but is kind of lazy. You think of motivation, you think of a lion. Think of some goofy Instagram post of a lion, face covered in blood, and yet it still appears to hunger for more. It might be because of the look or the attitude of the animal, but it shouldn't be based on its work ethic. But we say that is us. We don't want to be weak. We don't want to be the gazelle. But let's say you knew a guy who sleeps 10 hours a day. He gets up. He works a short amount of hours, but gets paid very handsomely for his trouble. He gets home, has sex twice with his wife, and goes right back to sleep for another 10 hours. That guy probably wouldn't be able to give you some thought-provoking words about his journey. And that's because the lion is entitled. It's privileged to be the king of the jungle, so it doesn't have to work as hard or as much.
One is this strong notion of entitlement.
Dr. Christine Pohl is a professor of church and society at Asbury Theological Seminary. And yes, she's a God-fearing woman, but she's no Bible thumper. She has some interesting insight on the subject of entitlement.
It really underlines any sense of ourselves as receivers of gifts. Paul Tournier, the Christian psychologist, some of you may have read years ago, he once said that no gift can bring joy to the one who has a right to everything. No gift can bring joy to one who has a right to everything. And I think if we're entitled to everything, we're grateful for nothing.
Did you hear that? If we're entitled to everything, then we're grateful for nothing. Khaled doesn't project this attitude of having the right to all success. Think of his Snapchat stories again. The talk of blessings, praise to the Most High, I appreciate you, fan love. It's the exact opposite. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Remember those horrid numbers that I mentioned about his 2015 album? Well, in July 29th, 2016, he released his 9th album, Major Key. The results of this record were totally different from I've Changed a Lot. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Top 200 and sold 95,000 copies in its very first week. After this happened, Khaled immediately took to social media to give thanks. And that's because when you're a gazelle, everything that comes across you is to be appreciated, since you haven't got a clue when it's all going to be stripped away from you. You know, like when you might get killed. If you're at the top of the food chain, then it's expected. There is no smoking gun to fear because you are that smoking gun. They're both motivated. But make no mistake, when the sun rises, they are also both running.